Well, welcome back to the RevOpsCharlie channel. And today we have an edition of Globetrotters, where I get to speak to people in the technology ecosystem about a specific country or region that they have a passion for. And we're going to learn about what it takes to sell in that country or to set up an office and a team there. And today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Bam. We're going to be talking about Nigeria, and this is one that I've been looking forward to for a long while because I know very little about the country and can't wait to learn more about it. So, Bam, welcome to the channel.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Looking forward to having a fantastic conversation.
Amazing. So maybe just for those that are not aware of you, do you want to just introduce a little bit about yourself and your background, and maybe what your sort of interest and focus is on the Nigerian market?
Yeah, thanks very much again. So I moved over to the UK in 2008. I came over here, having completed my pharmacy training, which is my background. Came to this country, did a master's degree in public health, and ended up practicing as a pharmacist again in the UK here, which I was doing with one of the biggest chains in the UK at the time called Lloyd's Pharmacy. But before I came over to the UK anyway, I had a keen interest in technology and particularly in software. So having worked in pharmacy here in the UK for a few years, I just decided that, it just really wasn't for me. I really wanted to explore, the software side of things. And one thing led to the other. I ended up, touching Salesforce, which I absolutely enjoyed. And I remember that, after giving up pharmacy and starting on one of my first roles within Salesforce, I was working for a company called Nine Group at the time. So it's a company based in Gloucester. And it was the first experience that I had with partners. So while I started working there, I heard about the fact that the implementation was actually done by a Salesforce partner. So I started to investigate, and I, ended up meeting some of the Salesforce partners that did the implementation, which then enabled me to learn a bit more. And from that point on, the first thing that came to my mind was that I would absolutely love to be able to do that one day. So, fast forward quite a few years later, I managed to set up, a Salesforce consultancy called DKloud Consulting. Again, that was something that I ended up setting up because I came in contact with a charity organization up in Wolverhampton that, do an amazing thing, within the community. And they were looking for a database. That was what they wanted. And I said to them, look, what you guys need is better than a database. You actually need a CRM. So I did introduce them to Salesforce and did the implementation for them. I handheld them through the process, and they found it magical. So from that point on, I was like, you know what? Coming from Nigeria, there are a lot of charity organizations out there that are doing fantastic stuff. What if we can empower them with the power of Salesforce to be able to do their magic and do it on a bigger scale? Reduce some of the manual and data entry and, stuff like that they have to rely on Excel and stuff like that to do. Salesforce can absolutely cater for that and can also have a lot of automation that automatically does stuff for them, behind the scenes as well. So that's the thing that's actually kind of led me back to, thinking about Nigeria. But beyond that as well, I think in 2020, we started doing a Salesforce, we created a Salesforce training company called Oxfordable Careers. And we started training people initially just here in the UK, but with particular focus within the kind of African, Caribbean, community. And I think for me, the main reason was, you remember, Charlie, we're working together on a project in Newbury. Well, crazy project, right?
Yeah, I remember it well.
Exactly. We'll probably talk about that a bit later. But on that particular project, one of the things that I noticed was the fact that there was a huge gap and there was a massive need for Salesforce professionals. Now, I knew that Salesforce already provided a very low barrier to entry into the software space. If we could get people who can, one, communicate effectively in English, people who are smart, they can easily learn Salesforce and they will start to add value straight away. And the first thing that came to my mind was, there are lots of Nigerians like me who are more clever than me, who have trained up to like PhD levels, who could potentially come into this ecosystem. All they need to do is learn the internal workings of Salesforce. The communication is not a problem. the interaction, putting them in front of businesses to do presentations, that wouldn't be a problem at all for them. All they need is just to have that initial exposure. So for me, that from that point on, I just knew that, one day I would definitely want to be able to have a company where we can train people like that and introduce them into the ecosystem. And I'm glad to say, being able to do that at a big level, just in the UK alone, we have been able to introduce, well over 60, 70 people into the Salesforce ecosystem on very high paying jobs. And now we've extended that to people out in Nigeria. So we've created a hub in Nigeria now where we're training up people as well, making them ready for the market.
That's fantastic to hear, Bam. And I know as we go through our conversation, it's going to be so interesting to hear about not only just the potential of finding talent in the country, but also helping people to really change their lives and get onto a career that might not have been available to them without you doing that. So maybe just to start and set the scene about the country. I was doing a little bit of sort of light research in prep for this, and I was seeing that the population of Nigeria is 230 million, which makes it the largest country by population in the African continent. But more important than that, the sixth biggest country in the entire world. So a bigger population than Brazil, Mexico, or Japan, that we often think of as big countries that US tech companies or European tech companies would then try and branch out into. So a huge population size. And it's not just population, indeed, in terms of just the economy, the 31st largest economy in the world as well. So maybe you could just take us on a little tour, with your experience of the country. What's it like as a country? Where are people based? Are there particular cities that people might not have heard of that are important to the country's economy?
Yeah, exactly. So Nigeria is a really, really interesting country, but beyond that, it's a country that's full of potential. I mean, you just need to look at, a lot of the really big countries like the UK, the US, where you find a lot of Nigerians, and you just need to look at what they're doing in those countries. Nigerians, you find them in every sector, and they're pushing the boundary. They're contributing massively to some of these countries, in really, really big ways. But coming back to the home front, and I may get this statistic a bit wrong anyway, but one thing I know, so like you said, 230 million people in Nigeria, and I think the statistic goes something like 70% of that population is actually under 30 years old. So we have a massive young population. Now that can be a good or a bad thing, because if this population is not well educated, don't have a lot of opportunities and all of that, that could potentially be a time bomb, right? But if this population is well trained, the opportunities are there both locally and abroad that they can probably plug into, then that can be a big thing for that particular economy. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Nigerians are some of the most educated people that you'll find anywhere. Majority of Nigerians are really passionate and really driven. I mean, if you just need to go into the country to see. Most Nigerians are people that, even if they have a job, they always have something else on the side that they're doing. So they're always looking for ways to better themselves. They're never stagnant just in one place, just thinking, this is my life, this is it, I'm going to stay here forever. No, they're constantly looking at how they can better themselves, how they can increase their income, how they can empower themselves and empower people around them. So the people are fantastic. A lot of the people are well trained, and they're very, very intelligent, and they're hungry for opportunity. Now, as far as the government is concerned, I know that, we have a new government which just came into place, I think, early this year. And I've seen a lot of push from the government talking about, investment in the ICT sector. I've seen a lot of jobs being created at the moment. I've seen a lot of conversations around, partnerships, home and abroad, trying to see how opportunities can be brought to the young people in Nigeria as well. So I think that we are at that point where the opportunity is becoming really, really ripe now. And I think people just need to start getting to the point where we can actually harvest these opportunities as well. Now, in terms of the cities where I believe technology is going to really, really kick off in Nigeria, I think in the coming years, I believe Lagos is going to be one of those. And I know in Lagos as well, there are already hubs in there. I know that, Facebook is doing big things in Nigeria. I know that Google is doing some great stuff. And that's aside from other smaller hubs that are springing up left, right, and center as well. So Lagos is effectively the commercial center of Nigeria. That's the business center, if you like. Whereas Abuja is basically the seat of government administration,
Okay.
for Nigeria. So Nigeria is basically the capital of the country, whereas Lagos is basically the commercial city. But there's a lot of activity going on in Lagos as well. I mean, sorry, in Abuja as well, as far as technology is concerned, because like I said, that's where a lot of the government officials reside. That's where a lot of the decisions actually happen as well. And then, of course, you've got Jos. So Jos is actually where I come from. Jos is a smaller state. Yeah, it's not far away from the capital city. I believe it's about 3 hours out from Abuja, which is the capital city. And that's one of the places that we have just recently set up a hub in as well. So we set up a Salesforce hub in Jos. It's registered with Salesforce. And we actually have a building there. It's we've got electricity there, we've got internet services there, and we're providing our trainings directly there. But it's also open for people who want a quiet working environment where they can kind of just get a little cubicle and they can go in there, plug their laptops, and just be able to work quietly for the day. So but the vision that we have for the Jos Salesforce hub is to see if we can use that as an incubation center for talent, particularly as far as Salesforce is concerned. As I speak to you now, we have a list of about maybe 20-something odd people, if not more, just within the Just Salesforce hub, who have at least a Salesforce admin certification. All they're waiting for is just opportunity. All they're waiting for is just, for a role to become available. Now, as recently as I think about 3 months ago, one of the Salesforce partners, I believe in Dubai, came into Nigeria. And when they came into Nigeria, apparently, this is the story I had, was that their plan was just to look around in the environment and see if they can find people that are interested in training to become Salesforce professionals. But they were then shocked when they found out that it's beyond that. We have people who have gone, that have kind of, gone past the, I don't know, what's it called? In terms of the trailblazer, they've done
trailheads and
trailheads rather. Trailheads, they've done, right to the max, right? But beyond that, you have people who have done Salesforce admin certifications, the consultant certifications, even the developer ones. So they've actually taken on three of our students, on an internship.
Fantastic.
As it stands right now. So I am currently in the process of taking on people as well on an internship for DKloud. So that's DKloud, registered here in the UK as well. I'm trying to see how we can do that, because we're starting to feel the pressure that we're training a lot of people out there, but the opportunity isn't there. So we're trying to do our best as well to see how we can kind of give them bits of internship, take a few people 3 months and take another set of people 3 months, so that they don't feel that all that effort that they've put in is going to waste, if that makes sense.
And when you're talking about the the opportunity, the types of companies and enterprises in the Nigerian market, we think of oil and energy being a big sector. Are there others that are up and coming and have a need for these kind of talent?
Yes, massive. So I was talking to a Salesforce account exec actually a few weeks ago, and they mentioned the fact that currently in Nigeria there are a few partners that are registered, albeit they're a bit inactive. But we know that the banking sector in Nigeria is really robust. It's one of the biggest sectors in Nigeria, and I think at the moment there's about 2 or 3 banks that are currently using Salesforce. Then aside from that, if you come into the development sector, so, what in the UK here we'll call the third sector, or the charity organizations, right? Now that's another really, really big sector down in Nigeria. A lot of these charity organizations in Nigeria, some of them are actually headquartered either in the US or in the UK, but they run operations out there in Nigeria. So you find these charity organizations already using Salesforce here, but because they have operations in Nigeria, they are also kind of extending their Salesforce platform to the users in Nigeria as well. But what we're trying to see, if we can try and push into Nigeria now is to see if some of these local charity organizations would have the opportunity to be able to access the power of the Salesforce platform as well. But then, of course, in terms of different sectors as well, you also have the education sector. That's a massive sector that should technically be benefiting from Salesforce. As you know, in the UK here, a lot of universities, a lot of colleges have taken on Salesforce, and they're using it in a big way, and it's transforming how they operate today. We have, I can't even count, but we have tons of universities, out there in Nigeria, tons of, well-functioning, well-run universities that can potentially be benefiting as well from Salesforce. And then beyond that, you have all the other sectors, small and medium scale businesses that are running in Nigeria that could potentially be benefiting from, the power of the platform as well. So there is a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is what I think is a bit of a lack of exposure and education, I would say. The reason being that a lot of people are just used to kind of having on-premise systems like your Oracles and all of that. I don't think people understand the robustness and the power of cloud computing yet. But I think once people get to that point, I believe that it's really going to fly in a really, really big way. So I feel like there's a huge market there, which in my opinion, I think Salesforce is not, in my opinion anyway. I don't think that they are investing seriously in there yet, but there's a huge opportunity there.
And let's just chat a little bit about some of the concerns that people might have. If you're an American company or a European company that's thinking about opening up, or where you might place your offshore, whether you think of a traditional India maybe, or if you're in Americas, maybe Costa Rica, something like that. When I think of perhaps my first interactions with Nigeria, it was probably some emails that I received at the start of the internet about a large sum of money that I just needed to get out of the country. How do you think that perception is changing, and what people should be considerate of if they're thinking about opening up in the country?
Yeah, so that's a really, really great question. So I understand, the whole concern around kind of data security, and also being able to ensure that people are actually doing their work as they should out there, especially if you don't really have managers on ground to get people into offices and all of that, if you're going to employ people to work kind of remotely and all of that. So yeah, I definitely do understand that concern, but again, I think that technology has moved quite well at the moment to be able to cater for some of these challenges. I think that once you can get past where you're able to register your company in Nigeria and you have your operations all registered and all of that, I don't think that all these challenges around scams or around data integrity, data security, and all of that, none of these things cannot be handled with technology, if that makes sense. I mean, like I said, currently there are lots of people out there in Nigeria today that are working for other organizations, be it in the US, in the UK, and all of that, and they're doing that work from Nigeria. In fact, I think that if there's anything that a company potentially needs to be more worried about, I think, is things like power. Like, would the person that you're employing actually have regular power to be able to do their jobs, if that makes sense? Like, will they have access to good internet connectivity to be able to, because obviously Salesforce sits on online, right? Would they be able to connect and be able to do their jobs uninterrupted for an 8-hour period? I think that these are the things that if I was a business, I'll be more worried about. Because say, for example, if you look at the Salesforce platform, there are lots of security features on the Salesforce platform that you can actually deploy that can protect your data, and they can, that can protect you. The truth is that you can never protect yourself 100%. It doesn't matter where you are, right? But you can mitigate some of those risks anyway.
Yeah.
By assigning people permissions to exactly what they need, or enough rights for them to be able to do the job that you want them to be able to do for you. But like I said, I think what I'll be more worried about is things like internet connectivity, but also say, for example, stable electricity. And that again can also be overcome, because there are in Abuja, for example, and in Lagos as well, there are businesses which the way they operate is they have a building, where they provide everything. They provide the space, they provide the electricity, they provide the internet connectivity, they provide the security. So people can actually go into those environments and work from there, if that makes sense. So, if you're a company that's looking to probably go into that market, it will be a good idea to probably liaise with some of these organizations. More than happy to put people in touch with those kind of companies. And all you need to do is, speak to them to see if you can kind of rent a particular space there where your staff would actually go in there and work. If you want them to have a key card so that you can be sure that people have actually tapped in and tapped out, and then people can go in there, they can connect, to the internet and do their work uninterrupted every day, effectively.
And for those of us whose geography isn't so great, could you just share a little bit about time zones and how that is helpful to a company in terms of where they're basing themselves and who they're trying to sell to?
Yeah, so obviously Nigeria is based kind of in the equator, right? So it's West Africa. The only parallels I can draw in terms of time zones, I think, is maybe compared to the UK. So I think in the summer, the Nigerian time is usually the same as the UK time. But once obviously we get to the winter, then Nigeria goes 1 hour behind. But I think between Nigeria and UK time, the time zone is just maybe like 1 hour difference at most, and that's usually during the winter season. So if you think about that, that is prime, particularly say, for example, for UK, if you have staff out there, you can leverage on the fact that the time zone is just 1 hour. In fact, half of the year is the same, right? Which means that you can start work at the same time and you can finish at the same time. So when it comes to monitoring how people are working and all of that, it's very easy. It's not like while you're asleep, they're working and you don't know what's going on at that particular point. You're actually on the same time zone. And salary expectations are nowhere close to what we have, say, for example, here in the UK. I wouldn't want to throw out any numbers because it can be quite varied as well, depending on what platform you're working on or the kind of role and all of that. But it's nowhere close. I would say, you can potentially get away with paying less than you actually pay for a resource in India. You can pay less than that, to somebody in Nigeria, and they'll be very happy with a salary like that. So, I genuinely think that there's a huge opportunity there for companies to leverage. Rather than looking at just the problems, I think we need to start looking at the opportunity, but the solutions to the problem, rather than just, because there's no region of the world that is doomed to remain the way it is forever. Do you see what I mean? Like, and I think, particularly those of us working within the technology space, we are problem solvers. That's what we do. How can we address, what we may consider as a problem, without exposing ourselves too much to any unnecessary risks. And I genuinely believe that, these problems are absolutely surmountable.
And like you said, Lagos is sort of the prime business city. It's a city of 12 million people. And with such a large percentage of people under the age of 30, the amount of talent and skill that can be developed out of a population like that is amazing. Within Lagos, and I don't know if this is a accurate question or not, are there any specific sort of business districts or sort of trade zones where a company setting up would gravitate towards?
Yes, absolutely. So I know that the Lekki area is a really, really good area. Now, it's not a very cheap area by Nigerian standards, and, while you're asking that question, that was one thing that I was actually thinking behind my mind was the fact that, if as a company that's looking to invest out there in Nigeria, if you're happy to pay people a bit more money to be able to live, say, for example, within that Lekki area, because again, different areas, have their different challenges. Do you see what I mean? But people living, for example, within the kind of Lekki area, there's a lot of safety in that kind of area. There's a lot of more predictability, in terms of facilities, so be it like, internet services, even like decent accommodation. Commute is more predictable within these kind of areas as well. But I would say, off the top of my head right now, I'll say, the kind of Lekki area in Lagos is fantastic. I'm 100% sure that there are more places, but I'm not the best person to tell you in terms of like
Yeah,
Lagos.
yeah,
What are the other
yeah.
areas in Lagos anyway? But yeah,
No,
Lekki is
that's
definitely a good area
fantastic.
to look at.
And
Yeah.
then I think for many companies that are thinking about opening up in on the African continent, South Africa is where they gravitate towards and think about opening up in Johannesburg, which has got its own power
Mm.
and load shedding issues to deal
Yeah.
with. How do you think about that for someone that's thinking about the African continent, and should they be weighing that up and saying, well, instead of heading further south down to Johannesburg, that Lagos and the Nigerian market would be the best first stop?
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything wrong in obviously investing in South Africa or any part of Africa for that matter. But I think the reason why I believe that businesses need to think about Nigeria, one is you touch on the statistics earlier, right? The population. It's a
Mm,
massive population. I believe Nigeria is probably the biggest or the second biggest economy in Africa at the moment, probably after Egypt, because I don't even think South Africa is actually the size of Nigerian economy at the moment. So first of all, you have the market, but secondly, you have the population in there. But
mm,
then the third thing, is just that you have a lot of people that are genuinely well trained. You have well trained, very clever individuals, in Nigeria, passionate, that can jump on this and make something out of it, if that makes sense.
mm,
So I think that, yeah, definitely Nigeria is being overlooked at the moment. But if you look at the size of the economy, if you look at the number of businesses that can potentially be benefiting from the power of Salesforce, it's amazing. I mean, you touched earlier on the oil sector in Nigeria.
mm,
You have all the Shells, the Elves, the Mobiles, just name them. They're all there.
mm,
These are the big names that we know about. There are so many other smaller businesses within the oil and gas sector today who are probably not using Salesforce. I know
mm,
some of them are using SAP, potentially, Oracle and all of that, but where is Salesforce in all of this? Do you see
mm,
what I mean? Like Salesforce can have a really good market share, within this market and be benefiting massively.
mm,
So yeah, I think that for those reasons, I would say Nigeria is definitely a big market. But, forget about oil and gas. Nigeria is a country that's heavily resourced. I think oil and gas is actually kind of overshadowed, the other natural resources that we have in Nigeria. Nigeria's got diamonds. Nigeria's got, things like lithium
mm.
and a lot more, commercial resources are available in Nigeria. I mean, people are not necessarily focusing on that yet,
Yeah,
but when it
yeah,
gets to it, especially with the advent of, electric cars and all of that, everybody
mm,
wants lithium these days.
yeah,
So when we get to that point, who knows what's going to happen? If you're talking about renewable energy, that's something that can become really big in Nigeria because is it the sun that we're talking about? We got that massively. Is it the wind? That's readily available as well. So I think that, there's a lot of potential there that unfortunately is not being tapped. And the excuse
mm,
that everyone keeps giving is about the fact that, oh, we're not so sure about, either the infrastructure or we're not so sure about, the scams and things like that, which are genuine fears. But
mm,
like I said, I strongly believe that these things can absolutely be overcome. And, it's just a few kind of bad eggs that are kind of
mm.
spoiling everything else for everyone, really, and, disadvantaging everybody else. I think a lot of businesses are losing out massively by making those excuses, I think.
Mm, mm. Well, Bam, it's been a fantastic conversation. If I was a founder and thinking either of how do I learn more about setting my own company up in Nigeria, or how do I explore the talent pool there and maybe set up an offshore center, what's the best way of people getting in touch with you and getting connected into the Nigerian community?
Absolutely. So I think you can reach me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to reach me. Bamnan. If you just type Bamnam Maclean, it should come up. Hopefully, you'll put the my handle there, maybe
I will
on
do.
LinkedIn when
Put
you
that in the show
put this out.
notes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think anyone that gets in contact with me wants to get into the Nigerian market, more than happy to handhold them through that process. But like I said, we are already training a lot of resources right now. So it doesn't matter if you're just looking at Salesforce, if you're looking at resources within Java, PHP, I don't know, like data analytics, whatever, there are a lot of people that with just minimal training, you can get people ramped up really quickly to the point where they're independent and can support you massively.
Brilliant. Well, I'll share all your details in the show notes. And like I said at the start, I was really looking forward to this because I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I have done. And I'm very much looking forward to my first trip there. Hopefully with you as my tour guide, Bam. So that would be great.
That would be great. Absolutely. That would be great, Charlie. Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool. No worries. Thanks very much, Charlie. Good to see you again. Cheers.